We've been traveling for 2 days. Our water bottles are empty. The children are about to faint. If we don't find water tonight, you can prepare our funeral in the morning. You're our last hope, bush tracker. Australia's merciless desert looked even more cruel in the driest summer of 1898. While the sun blazed like a pitiless eye in the sky, the earth was cracked, vegetation burned, everything writhing from thirst. In this barren terrain among the red earth, a solitary silhouette walked alone. Tandrawati was his tribe's most skilled water finder. In the language of Australia's indigenous people, his name meant one who sees water. This 32-year-old Aboriginal warrior had been equipped with ancient knowledge learned from his grandfather since childhood. He knew which stones concealed moisture beneath them, which plant roots stored water, which animal tracks led to hidden water sources. But for the past 3 months, even he was struggling. This drought was more severe than even the elders could remember. Rivers had dried up, natural water pools had vanished, and even the deepest wells had receded. His tribe had migrated north, seeking more humid lands. Tandrawati had stayed behind. Why? Because he was following a vision he had seen in his dreamtime dreams. In his dream, he had seen that a large white family would die from thirst, and that he needed to save them. The ancestor spirits had told him that this mission was part of his spiritual journey. At first, he hadn't wanted to believe it. White settlers had been displacing his people from their lands for years. Why should he save a white family? But his grandmother Yurampi's words echoed in his mind. Tandrawati, water belongs to everyone. We must not withhold Mother Earth's gift from anyone. Even if they are enemies, giving water is our sacred duty. As the sun set, Tandrawati climbed a hill and scanned the horizon. In the distance, on a dusty road, he saw a stopped caravan, a horse-drawn wagon, several human silhouettes, and children's voices. His heart quickened. Was this the family he had seen in his dream? He approached with careful steps, moving with the silence learned through years of experience. He observed from among the bushes. There was an English family, a middle-aged man, a young woman, and 2 small children. The man's face was worried. The woman was trying to comfort the children. The youngest child, perhaps 5 years old, was sobbing. "Thomas," he heard the woman's voice, "how much longer can the children endure? Mary's lips are cracked. Little William isn't even crying anymore." The man named Thomas took off his hat and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Margaret, I don't know. According to the map, the nearest town is still a day away, but the horses are exhausted too. Without water." "Papa," whimpered the girl child named Mary, "I'm so thirsty, my tongue is sticking." As Tandrawati watched this scene, something broke in his heart. The children's helplessness resembled the fears from his own childhood. But these were white settlers. They were his people's enemies. Yet, a voice inside him, his grandfather's voice, "Tandrawati, the ancestor spirit sent you here. Listen to them." He took a deep breath and approached the caravan under the protection of darkness. But just then, Thomas stood up and drew his pistol. "Who's there? Show yourself." Tandrawati hesitated. Most of his past encounters with whites had ended in violence, but the children's voices echoed in his mind. Slowly raising his hands, he emerged from among the bushes. Thomas's eyes widened. Before him stood an Aboriginal warrior wearing traditional clothing, with long black hair and bronze skin. But Tandrawati had no weapons in his hands, and his stance wasn't aggressive. "Do you speak English?" Thomas asked, not lowering his pistol. "Yes," Tandrawati replied in accented but clear English. "I am Tandrawati, water finder of the tribe." Margaret stood up, hiding the children behind her. "What do you want?" Tandrawati looked at the family's fear-filled faces. Then he saw little William's dying condition. This child could die within a few hours. You're looking for water, aren't you?" he asked. Thomas looked at him in amazement. Can you find water? Aborigines have lived on these lands for thousands of years. My grandfather, his grandfather, they all taught me the secrets of water. But there's no water here," Thomas shouted. "We've been searching for 2 days. Everything is dried up." Tandrawati smiled. It was a wise smile. "White man looks at the surface of the land. I look at the heart of the land." Margaret stepped forward. "Please, if you can really find water, my children are dying. I'll give you anything you want." "I don't want money," said Tandrawati, "but I want to learn something from you." "What? Why did you come to this desert? These lands are dangerous." Thomas lowered his head. "Our flour mill in Adelaide went bankrupt. We wanted to start a new life in the West, near Perth, but I guess we chose the wrong path. Tejandrawati studied them carefully. Was this just a lost family, or were they like other whites who wanted to seize their lands? But the children's condition had softened his heart. "All right," he said finally, "I'll show you water, but I have a condition. Any condition, you will respect these lands, you won't harm our sacred places, and if you encounter other Aborigines, you'll tell them my name, Tejandrawati, Water Finder." Thomas and Margaret looked at each other. They had no other choice. "Agreed," said Thomas. Tejandrawati nodded and approached. He looked at little William. The child's lips were completely dry, his eyes half closed. "This child is very bad," he murmured. "We must find water immediately." He took out a small tube from his bag. Inside was a dark liquid. "This is bush medicine. Apply it to the child's lips. It will comfort him a little." Margaret looked hesitantly. "What is it?" "Acacia tree sap. Harmless. Gives moisture." Margaret took the liquid and applied it to the child's lips. William's breathing became a little easier. "Now come," said Tejandrawati, turning to Thomas. "Bring lantern. We'll work at night." "At night? Why? At night the ground cools. Underground water's vapor becomes more visible. Too hot during day, you can't see." Thomas took the lantern and followed Tejandrawati. Margaret stayed behind with the children, watching them anxiously. Tejandrawati moved about 100 meters away from the caravan and stopped at a point. He crouched and smelled the earth. Yes, he smelled it. Thomas watched him in amazement. "Here," said Tejandrawati, "the earth smells different. There's moisture, but there's nothing here. Just dry earth. White man, you look with your eyes. I look with ancient senses." Tejandrawati stood up and examined the surroundings. About 50 meters ahead, he walked toward a small depression. There, very small, almost imperceptible, was a green plant. "Look," he said, pointing to the plant. "This is pigface plant. Very resilient plant. Only lives if there's underground water." Thomas looked at the plant. Indeed, unlike other plants around, this one was green and alive, but this is so small. How will we find water? Chandrawati smiled and took out a long, pointed iron rod from his bag. "My grandfather made this water divining rod." Water divining, isn't that superstition? Superstition for white man, science for Aborigine. Holding the iron rod with both hands, he began to move slowly. He stepped carefully, focusing on the rod's movements. Thomas watched him in amazement. Suddenly, the rod began to tremble in Chandrawati's hands. "Here," he shouted, "water is here, but how can you be sure?" Chandrawati crouched and put his ear to the ground. He listened for a long time. "Do you hear?" he whispered. Thomas also crouched and listened. At first he heard nothing, but then, very faint, very distant, the sound of water, as if very deep, underground, a flowing stream. How is this possible? These lands were filled with great river thousands of years ago. Now river dried up, but underground flow still exists. In the depths. How deep? Chandrawati listened again. Maybe 3 meters, maybe 4. Thomas's face fell. 3 meters. How will we dig by hand? You won't dig, said Chandrawati. I know how to do it. They returned to the caravan. Margaret greeted them anxiously. Did you find water? Yes, said Thomas, still in disbelief. He really found water, but need to dig, said Chandrawati. Deep water, but I can do it. Traditional way. How long will it take? Until sunrise. But for children, I can do something else now. He took out several roots from his bag. This is mallee root, has water inside. Children can chew. Desert survival. Margaret hesitantly took the roots. Is it safe? Aboriginal children chew for thousands of years. Very safe. She gave the roots to Mary and William. The children were reluctant at first, but as they chewed the roots, the moisture inside began to comfort them. Now, said Chandrawati, I'll start working. You, he turned to Thomas, hold lantern. I'll dig. Let me help. No, this is sacred work. Must talk with ancestral spirits. Respect. Tejandrawati returned to the point he had determined and first performed a small ritual. He crouched, placed his hands on the earth and murmured something in ancient language. What's he doing? Margaret whispered. Asking permission from Mother Earth, Thomas explained, to take water. This ritual lasted about 10 minutes. Then Tejandrawati took out a traditional digging stick from his bag, a hard, long branch, but with metal at the tip. When he began to dig, Thomas was surprised. Tejandrawati's technique was very different from white men's digging method. He worked by reading the soil's structure, knowing which point was softer. Here, he murmured, clay layer, sand underneath, water flows in sand. An hour passed. 2 hours. Thomas continued holding the lantern. but his arms began to ache. Tijandrawati continued working without getting tired. "Rest," said Thomas. "You're very tired." "No, children need water. Must finish before sunrise." At the end of the third hour, Tijandrawati's digging stick hit a different sound, not metallic, but softer. "Sand," he shouted. Reached sand layer. He began digging more carefully. And then, at the bottom of the hole, the earth began to moisten. "Water's coming," Thomas shouted. Indeed, slowly water began to accumulate at the bottom of the hole. At first it looked muddy and dirty, but Tijandrawati wasn't worried. "First water always muddy," he explained. "Must wait. Clear water will come." They waited half an hour, and indeed the water began to clear. Tijandrawati dipped his hand in the water and tasted it. Good water, fresh, drinkable. Thomas ran back to the caravan. "Margaret, we found water, real water." The family excitedly ran to the water hole. When the children saw water, they began to cry, but this time they were tears of joy. "Can we drink?" Margaret asked. "Of course," said Tijandrawati, "but slowly. Very thirsty people, if drink too fast, get sick." The children first took small sips, then more. Their thirst for water was so intense that they looked like they might jump into the hole. "Enough, enough," Tijandrawati laughed. "You'll drink more later. Water won't run away." Thomas and Margaret also drank water. When the first sip touched their mouths, both closed their eyes. This was the most beautiful water they had ever tasted in their lives. "We don't know how to thank you," Margaret said, turning to Tijandrawati. "Don't thank," said Tijandrawati. "This is natural duty. But you saved our lives, you saved our children." Tijandrawati looked at the children. Mary and William were much more lively now. Their color had returned. "These children are future. Future is important." Thomas stepped forward. "What can we give you? We have money, we have food. I want nothing. But," he paused, "there is one thing. Tell us, when you go west, tell people, Aborigines are not enemies. We live in harmony with land. Land is our teacher." Margaret nodded. "We'll tell them. We'll definitely tell them." And Tijandrawati continued, "When you meet other Aborigines, show them respect. We also have family. We also have children, of course." Tijandrawati stood up and gathered his bag. "I must go now. My tribe is waiting for me." "Stay," said Margaret. "We'll have breakfast together in the morning." "Thank you, but—" Tijandrawati hesitated. "Actually, I can stay for an hour. I'll teach children bush survival. Might be needed in future." Thomas's face brightened. "That would be wonderful." That night, sitting around the small fire, Tijandrawati taught the children survival methods in nature, which plants were edible, which insects were harmless, how to find direction by looking at the stars. "This star," he said, pointing to a bright star, Southern Cross, shows south. If you get lost, look at it. Mary listened carefully. "How do you know so many things?" "My grandfather taught me. His grandfather taught him. Thousands of years. Knowledge is passed down." "My grandfather also knows many things," said little William, "but he only knows how to read books." Tijandrawati laughed. "Books are good, but Earth is also book. Nature is biggest library." Toward morning, Tijandrawati got up and prepared to leave. The children hugged him. "Do you have to go?" Mary asked. "Yes, little sister, but remember, always here." He pointed to his heart. "Friendships stay here." Thomas extended his hand to him. "Tijandrawati, you are my friend. If your path crosses ours again, our home is open to you." "This is beautiful word. I also promise, if you get lost in desert, shout Tijandrawati's name. Voice will come to me with wind." And so, as the sun rose, the water finder Tijandrawati disappeared into the desert. But the water well and friendship he left behind changed that family's life forever. When Thomas and Margaret reached Perth, they told everyone Tijandrawati's story. This story eventually became a small seed that changed the perspective toward Aborigines in Australia. And Tijandrawati, when he returned to his tribe, he received appreciation from the elders because he had used ancient wisdom not just for his own people, but for all humanity. The spirits of Dreamtime were proud of him.